Hey everybody, it's Mr. P again, and I'm here with your e-learning lesson for Wednesday, May 13th. So we're continuing with volume, okay, three-dimensional figures. So yesterday, remember, we did volume of cones. Today we're going to look at a volume of a cylinder. All right, another three-dimensional figure. Again, finding that how much space is inside is what we're doing. Remember, our units are still cubed units or cubic units, right, where we do to the third power, so inches cubed, feet cubed, yards cubed, etc. Cylinder. Okay, so cylinder, unlike a cone, which has one base, cylinder has two bases. Okay, they're both circles. So here's one base, here's the other base. The height, okay, the height of a cylinder is the distance between the two bases. So if it's up and down, the height is this dimension. If it's on its side, the height is this dimension. It's just the distance between the two bases is what the height is. So those are the key dimensions. So the radius of one of the circular bases and then the height, okay, both of which we're going to use to calculate the volume of a cylinder. So our formula is pi r squared times height. So pi, still using 3.14. R is going to be the radius of one of the circular bases. And the height, again, that's going to be the distance between the two bases, whether it's up and down or whether it's on its side. All right? And remember, if we're given the diameter, we have to go ahead and divide by 2 to get the radius, because our formula calls for radius. Okay, so let's look at the first one. So I have a cylinder with the dimensions of 10 for the height. So I'm going to say that's h. 3, what's that? That's the radius, right? Halfway across one of the circular bases. So I go to my formula. Volume equals pi times r squared times height. Pi, 3.14. R squared, so 3 squared. So just like we've been doing, we're going to have to do that exponent first times the height, which is 10. So next, my next step, before I do any multiplying, is simplify the exponents. So 3.14, 3 squared is 9. So times 9 times 10. Now I can multiply those three numbers together. 3.14 times 9 times 10. Now the directions on your assignment, which will be on Alex, again, for May 13th, are going to say round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so here's what we're going to get. We're going to get 282.6. All right, and since that's 5 or above, the decimal is 5 or above after the decimal point, we round up. So this would round up to 283, and I would say inches cubed, because it's volume. All right, we got another cylinder number 2. It's on its side this time, but remember that the height is just the distance between the two bases. So 6 that's going to be our height. Okay, because here's the two circular bases. 2, that's going to be the radius of one of the bases. Go back to the formula. So pi r squared times height. So 3.14 times 2 squared times the height of 6. So we go volume equals 3.14. Simplify the exponent. So times 4 times 6. Now we can multiply, okay, because order of operations says we have to do the exponent before we multiply. So when I multiply, okay, I get 75.36. And remember, we're rounding to the nearest whole number. So since 3 here, we just look at that first place after the decimal. Since that's less than 5, I round down to 75, so I would call it 75 yards cubed, or cubic yards. That's how much three-dimensional space is inside the cylinder. Okay, we'll try a couple more here in just a moment. So notice for the next two, I am given not the radius, but I'm given the diameter, which adds an extra step because we just have to take the diameter, divide by 2 to get the radius. Okay, so 10, that's going to still be our height because that's the distance between the two circular bases. Again, 20, that's the diameter. Right, to get the radius, I take the diameter divided by 2. So 20 divided by 2, so radius is 10. So that's what we're going to use for the radius. We go back to the formula, volume equals pi r squared times height. So volume is going to be 3.14 times 10 squared, okay, times 10, which is the height. Do the exponent first, so do 10 squared. So you'd have 3.14 times 100 times 10. And we would end up with 3,140, and we would get exactly that. Okay, there's no decimal after it, it'd be inches cubed. Last one, okay, cylinder. Notice it's on its side. Here's the two circular bases, so 3 is our height. Notice this dimension here, since it's all the way across the circle, that's the diameter. So just like this one, we have to divide the diameter by 2 to get the radius first, right? Because that's the diameter. So the radius is going to be 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So we'll go ahead and calculate the volume. So volume equals pi r squared times height. So 3.14 times 4 squared, okay, times the height, which we said was 3. So volume equals 3.14. Simplify the exponent, so 4 squared is 16. So times 3. And I would get volume equals 150.72. And since I am rounding to the nearest whole number, I just look at the first number after the decimal here to the right. Since 7 is greater than 5, I would round up to 151, the next whole number up. So 151 feet cubed. Okay, so in the formula for volume of a cylinder, pi times the radius squared times the height. And if we have diameter, we take the extra step of dividing the diameter by 2 to get the radius. Remember to use order of operations. So before you multiply, simplify the exponent, simplify the number squared, then multiply, and then round to the nearest whole number for these problems. So tomorrow we'll continue with volume, actually volumes of spheres. So as I said, you have another assignment for today, which will be on Alex. Okay, so the 513, just like yesterday's from 512, will also be on Alex. Just a note that they'll all be open 12 a.m. on Tuesday the 12th, just like I usually open all 3 on Tuesday for you. But until tomorrow, we'll see you guys later.